Hello, and these are glue sticks. They are not the skinny ones for the tiny hot glue guns. These are the bigger ones for the Ryobi hot glue gun with the battery. You can use any hot glue gun you want. I just prefer this one. If you're serious about doing these stencils or any hot glue work, this is the answer right here. The gun is actually not too bad. It's the battery that costs. So I already had a battery for my other tools. This is a non-stick parchment paper. It comes in, you can order this in pre-cut sheets, which is the ones that I prefer, but I ran out of those. So this is a roll of parchment paper. You can't use wax paper, you can't use Reynolds wrap, you can't use, I've tried all of those. One time I ran out of parchment paper and I thought, oh, I'll just use some random, a roll of random cooking, baking stuff, and nothing would work except for parchment paper. So I ran to the store and grabbed some. So now the hot glue gun, especially this Ryobi, is really hot. So you might want to wear protective gloves. I was thinking about ordering some, but I just haven't done it yet. So you just need a piece of parchment paper to start with. And you need to keep your hot glue sticks handy because this takes a lot of hot glue. You start off with a design, and for the sake of you being able to see this, I'm gonna try to just do a simple design. Peace sign. How about that? Okay. As soon as the hot glue starts dripping out, you start following the lines. You don't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, at first you're really not going to be perfect. So I kind of touch the paper just to stay on line. Oops. Now, that's a simple design, but that's not good enough. You have to go thicker than that. And I actually found out the hard way that if you want a good stencil, you got to make it really thick. So you go back over it. Sometimes you just gotta let it sit there and get warm again. Can't always keep. This is pretty good Ryobi, but a normal hot glue gun, that you're just gonna have to pace yourself. Now this is the quick method. So what you're doing here, you just put the hot glue on and you try to get it where you want it, and then you take this take another piece of this parchment paper and you put it on top of there and you rub it down. Keep rubbing it. It's hot, so you might want to have gloves on. Don't want to rub it too much, but you definitely want it. No bumps. You want it to be, you can tell the image is on there, but I mean, no cold bumps sticking up. I don't know how to say it. So, now, let's say that we gotta let that dry before we can pull it up, okay? Okay, just gonna let that dry. Okay, it's still warm, so you want to make sure that this is cool to the touch. That's how long you let it sit here. Okay, when it's ready, it should just peel up without sticking. So here it is. Now, if you peel it up, I'm going to show you what it looks like on that. So, now, that's not perfect. I know that. Well, you look at the thin areas. If they're too thin, you can go back over it with the hot glue. If they're too fat or too wonky, you just trim it with a pair of scissors. And you'll get better at this the more you do it. The faster you do it, the actually better it turns out. But see, what you'll find out when you go to print this as a stencil, you will find out that this area here is probably too thin. These little areas are too thin. So what I'm going to do here is put it back on here and go back over it. The whole thing. I'm going to just try this. The whole thing. Just go back over it. Especially the areas that are thin. Now this will stop working when the stick gets that far in. I don't know if you could tell. So you gotta, it's kind of awkward because you got a big old stick. When you first put the stick in, it's really sticking out the back. So I like this because you can add glue to it. Now I'm not going to do this because but if it ever gets cold and you're like, oh no, I didn't press it down or whatever, or you need to add to it and it just won't press down, you do the same exact thing, except you take an iron, but you got to be careful because you can get it too flat with an iron. You take an iron and then you iron over it with the piece of parchment paper on it. Okay, there you go. Now let's put this back on it and rub it down again. Now we might decide that this is too thick and we may have to take an iron over it. But what I found with an iron works really good. But you don't want to use an iron you're using on your clothes. I have a special iron just for art supplies. I mean art projects. Okay, that's still hot, so you just want to wait till it cools. Okay, now it's time to peel it up. And we're going to peel the hose. See, now I can handle it and it doesn't want to fall apart. So now this is about how thick you want it. Now you can either take an X-Acto knife blade. You don't even have to trim this out. But and you don't want to do it perfect or it's not going to look organic. You want it to have a little bit of a loose, a loose fill. But so let's say that you just want to get the worst humps off of it and leave it kind of like this because it just looks cooler. You could do a perfect, if you want to do a perfect peace sign, for example, you would cut that out with stencil. You wouldn't use a hot glue gun. Stencil paper. Now, I don't know if you can tell this, but see this area right here has a hole and it's pretty thin. So I'll probably, in a second, I'll go back over that one little area. A lot of my stencils, I didn't go back over and they're fine and everything, but sometimes when you're using them, they don't, okay, so what I do is I roll over this, and I'll show you in a minute, with a roller, okay? Now, I don't use a hard roller like you do in printmaking for this. I use a sponge roller. So when I roll over it, if it's too thin and it doesn't hold its weight in the right way, what it'll do is pull it up. So I'm just trying to, just from what I know, I'm trying to get. Now look at all these little pieces here. See those pieces? You just throw those away, and they will get stuck on everything if you don't get rid of them. And I'm saying you could probably throw this on this and use an iron and make another stencil. So maybe we'll hold on to these. We'll try that. Let's say we'll try that later. Okay, so now I am going to try to fix that one little area a little bit at the top here. Oh, I'm still trimming out a little bit. I just don't like those big bloopers. Okay, it's at the top there. Everything else looks pretty good. And it's pretty flat. If I did this, and I was just working on this little area, and I was trying to make, and let's say the phone rang or whatever, and I had to get on the phone, and then it was thick. Well, all I have to do is come back, like I said, and smash it between two pieces of parchment paper, and then iron it. And you just gotta be careful when you iron it, because they go paper thin. So I'm gonna put some more on this one. There. Anywhere you think it needs it. Like, I feel like that area's a little bit too thin. You don't notice that when you're doing it. Well, you can't really control this as well, but if you get this gun really hot and you know exactly what you want to go for, it's amazing how, I shouldn't have done that right on the cutting board, but it's amazing how, if you go fast and you know what you're doing, it'll turn out a lot better. Okay, folks, I think we got it. Now we just got to trim it out a little bit. See, this all got stuck on my cutting board. I wasn't paying attention. You're supposed to tell me when I'm not paying attention. These strings, if you don't get these strings off, they will eventually just fall off. So don't worry about it. I wouldn't stress out over anything, ever, if you can help it. Some designs you wouldn't even have to trim out. It just depends on what they look like. Okay, you guys ready to try this out? So, here's my black. I don't need 3 black rollers, but I was testing these rollers out to see how they worked. And, you know, you can't really wash them out, so you can, but they don't really come out. You can't change colors is what I'm saying. Okay, we're going to see here. Now this doesn't feel like it's quite flat enough, but it'll work. Okay, let's look at it. There's that. Let's put a little more ink on it. Let's see if one of these have more ink. And I usually use black ink just to proof everything. When you proof something, it means you just want to see what it looks like once you get it done. It doesn't have to be a design or color or anything, but if there's anything you want to change, it'll show up when you use black ink for sure. Okay, ta-da. Now, what do you think? See how you think, well, this is probably, you know, too bumpy or whatever, but it kind of makes it look pretty cool. It makes it look, you know, a little bit more. I say this little area here could be cut out just a tiny bit. If I can find my scissors, I'll do it real quick. Try it again. Try this. Okay, this is the roller from Temu. This is the roller from the hardware store. It seems to hold a little bit more paint, but not much. And then here is the, now this is not sponge. This is actually like that micro stuff. And it's not bad. I mean, I don't even use this kind that often, so not like I'm comparing it to the ones I have because I don't even use them. But I thought I might as well go ahead and order it and try it out so you know if you need to get rollers, if they worked or not. I'd say this works pretty good. Okay. There we go. Whoops. Pretty cool. And imagine putting color on this and, you know, once we get it on the jelly print, or you can just flat out spray paint it. I mean, you could use it, spray paint with it, you could use anything. And the black on here, you just let it dry, it won't hurt the stencil.